This video is for my roofing community. If you know anything about roof leaks or why people have problems in the winter, I'm asking you to provide your feedback on this video. If you guys could help out, this will help other roofers dissect problems that they have with roofing and siding issues, which ultimately always gets blamed on the roof, but it'll also help homeowners better understand why these things happen. And maybe you could use this video as a reference point as to what other issues could come up why there's an actual leak. So let's go ahead and get started. This home is a beautiful home that this homeowner obviously has taken tremendously good care of and maintains very well. In fact, last year he had an ice dam on the second floor. Let me show you exactly where that was, on the rear of the home. As you can see, there's still some snow in here in this valley. Last year they had an ice dam on the second floor and it caused leaks. And what was assumed is why this right elevation was actually getting these stains, which I'll touch on in a couple seconds with you as well. So what the homeowner did is went ahead and did what the right thing would be to do, is get closed cell insulation. And the reason why he got closed cell insulation is because he had a finished space with drywall and wanted to ensure that no moisture and no heat gets through that. So he went ahead and put an R49 insulation in the ceiling cavity. Let me show you what that looks like from the inside. Here we are on the inside of that space, and you can see that there's drywall everywhere, and they got vaulted ceilings. All this space now has insulation, and congratulations to this homeowner, whoever gave him the advice, or if he did his research, he did the right research, and he put in this insulation, which ultimately stopped the ice dams from creating new leaks. However, that led to what happened this year. And I'm going to show you what happened last year first before I move to the front. So there's a lot of staining that happened on the right elevation. So as you can see on this elevation, there's staining everywhere. And it appears from the left and the right side of the gable all the way down to the very bottom. And although he didn't clean it up, he has it being cleaned up tomorrow. I wanted to show you guys how bad it was. Let me pause it for a second and show you a couple pictures of it as well. So here's just a few pictures. I'm going to zoom in for a second so you guys can see all that staining on this side. So at that point, we thought it was, or he thought it was, that it was from the ice dams, which is a very logical thing to think. Let me show you a couple other pictures of it close up. And it's coming up from the top of the gable all the way down. However, ice dams typically end up in valleys or on the eaves of the roof. This is more of the rake end of the roof. So let's go ahead and now fast forward to the front of the roof, where last year this was not a problem, but this year it just appeared out of the blue after this last deep freeze that we had. So now we're on the front elevation. If you take a look, you could see the staining right here, right down the middle, then down on this side. It appears like it's between all the gables. And so this is the front, and you can see the staining is pretty consistent over the front right side and like the middle, well, right over the entry door, I guess, and all those windows. Now, when we went backwards, and I'm going to come back over here, you could see there's no staining right here. And again, you have all these open eave vents, which is 100% circulation, which is great when you have intake coming in and baffles and it's going over insulation. These aren't necessary where there's closed cell insulation. And I can see like how bad and to what extent this happened. Now, a couple things that I did note was you could see it behind the gutters on the fascia in some of these places, and you could see icicles growing out of the intake vents. Another close-up of how it looks like tar, and someone proposed that it might be from the tar paper on the roof above the ice and water shield. So I wanted to get your feedback on what you guys think about that. Let me look at that. It sucks. It's such a beautiful home. There's a close-up of it. Okay, so why don't we dissect what's happening on the inside of the home now? So a couple observations. The 3 dormers on top, 1, 2, 3, appears like all the staining's directly underneath it. So I learned that the closed cell was able to be installed everywhere except for right in front of the dormers, because obviously there was no access to that area. So something that was proposed is to take off all the soffits to look at what the actual culprit of the problem is, which might actually work. So let's go ahead and check what's going on inside. One of my concerns was that the home would have really high humidity on the inside. It was 41%, which is generally high, but in this case, with the fact that there's closed cell insulation, I didn't see any concern for why there would be any humidity in the attic space, because there is no attic space and there are no baffles and there is no reason why moisture should penetrate through that closed cell system. If someone is an insulation specialist, maybe they could chime in and give us some comments on what you think about this. Is that how it works with closed cells? My understanding is that it generally keeps the moisture and the heat away from the outside, because you're not creating that moisture between the insulation. So I can't see how that would cause the leak. For those of you that love FLIR cameras, I'm a big fan of the FLIR. As you can see, like, you got some purple there, so there's definitely some cool spots or things are coming through. Typically Windows will do that. I did notice this little spot right here, which was pretty warm, and it was generally warmer than everything around it. After digging a little more, I learned that there was a vent there, and this was pretty much an exhaust for a hydrostatic. I learned that there were hydronic baseboard heaters that were actually below in this cubby on this beautiful setting that's inside those dormer windows. So let's go ahead and dig a little bit more. Here's a normal picture so you can see what it looks like when you're looking from the top down and not through a thermal imaging camera. A little bit further away so you guys can see what we're looking at, and this is where that dormer is on top of that roof. We took off that register on top, and if you look inside, as I dug deeper, I saw this hydronic baseboard heater, and it heats up to about 135 degrees Fahrenheit. And it started to make me think, well, if this baseboard is 135 degrees and it's pinned up against this outer wall, who's to say that there's not going to be a potential moisture issue on that side? And so if you look at the front of the house, here's that dormer, right? And here's that opening between the two, okay? You have an opening where there was no closed cell insulation put in there. And the reason why is obviously there was no way to get access to it. So here's my theory, and tell me if this makes sense. When you have this closed cell everywhere else and everything else is blocked off and no heat can escape, you're now heating this unconditioned space and creating moisture where the heat from that baseboard against the wall is heating up the other side of the wall. It's causing moisture to gather in this cavity right here. And then ultimately it is leaking or turning into ice and then leaking when it gets warmer again. And that is the culprit of why we have all these stains everywhere. Because you could see the icicles were growing inside the intake on the bottom of the roof, on the soffits. And a couple other observations, I could see it all the way from the left. See right here. Between the two dormers, between the next two dormers. And then finally, on the right dormer, I don't see it going much further than past that right side of the dormer. So it makes me question, like, why is that? So my theory is the baseboards are causing this moisture issue, which is ultimately causing, I'm guessing, either tar paper or whatever's up on that roof, whether it be old or new or dirty, to now leak out and go onto the siding. Outside of that, that made me question, well, then how is it that the right side had the same problem if there's no dormer? I did learn there's a baseboard heater underneath that window, but it didn't make sense because if you think about it, then underneath this window you'd have tons of stainage, and there was none. But everywhere along the gable end, there was the staining. And so then that led me to question, how is that possible? And what I ended up realizing is, hold on a second, there is a vent cover there. So there's an exhaust fan probably out of the bathroom that is venting out, and it's heating the underside of the soffits. And now you're causing moisture buildup on the inside of the soffits. Again, the same way when you have heat and cold mixed together, it causes moisture, and then it goes down a little bit, cools off, becomes ice. And then over time, it gets warmer outside, and it all comes down. And you have these stains throughout from left all the way to the right of the gable. Come on, guys, comment below. Let me know what you think. Does this all make sense? Am I wrong? I mean, we're all human. The whole point is to figure out what the problem is, because this homeowner doesn't want to have to deal with this after every single winter. So what do you guys know? And what do you guys think about this theory? Do you guys think it could be something else? Another theory was that there's ice and water shields 6 or 7 feet up or 8 feet up, and then everything over it may have melted. This is not my theory, this is somebody else's theory, that it may have melted above that and then caused the tar paper to get wet, which ultimately led to this problem. But wanted to get your feedback. Let me know, chime in. Here's some more videos so you guys can see everything. Do you guys see anything in there that could make you question what's going on? So what's the solution, I guess, is the next question. Probably take out the soffits and fully insulate those areas with that closed cell insulation is my solution to this. Here's one last overview of all the elevations. Front, going on the right. The back right. The rear left. The left. And the front left. All right, guys. And if you guys think this is helpful for either yourselves or maybe others just to learn on it, with all the feedback that I'm anticipating we're going to get in the comment section, like and subscribe if you guys can. It helps, obviously, the YouTube algorithm, or so I keep hearing. But I really appreciate everyone's feedback, and I really appreciate you sticking around till the end.